It was one which sort of developed of its own accord. It was very difficult often on many days to decide what crowds were demonstrating against what. There were crowds against Liu Shaoqi, there were crowds against Britain, there were crowds marching against the Russians. And, you know, sometimes it took some time to identify exactly what they were shouting down with. But anyway, the crowd gathered and there was an organised demonstration going by to somewhere else. And then some sort of Red Guard leader arrived on the scene and converted the situation to his own advantage, started waving his little red book around, and he had a sort of ready-made demonstration.
And suddenly they were shouting down with Anthony Gray almost.
Well, they were shouting, I think, down with British imperialism. They're very careful, the Chinese, never shout any slogans of their own. They always shout the ones which the leader is giving them, and he reads them off the paper and they repeat them after him.
Were you scared?
Well, I wasn't happy. These things are very difficult to adjust to. One isn't used to sort of being involved in demonstrations as a correspondent. Perhaps in a sort of running mob or in violence, one sort of takes cover and so on. But to be the actual object of a demonstration is something that's rather difficult to accustom oneself to in an alien situation. It is frightening to be surrounded by a howling mob or punching you in the face but stopping that inch short of your chin so that there's actual no physical contact, but showing all the hostility in the world to you without actually doing you any violent physical harm. I saw a great crowd of people all looking towards my gateway, and I couldn't see the gateway, that was out of sight, but I heard the banging and they were battering it, and I knew they were coming in. I ran back into my office, picked up the telephone and dialed the number of the British mission to tell them that I was being invaded. Whether it rang or not, I don't know. Maybe the telephone was already cut, but I was holding the telephone and waiting for the dialing tone to begin when the Red Guards were coming up the stairs. I could hear them shouting and banging and coming up the stairs. They came into the office and grabbed me by the arms and dragged me down the stairs into the courtyard.
What did they do then?
Well, I was wearing only a sweatshirt and a pair of shorts. It was a very hot night. It's very humid in Peking in August. And I was dragged down the steps of my house into the courtyard. I was painted black down one side with a brush. A poster was stuck on my back. And then I was dragged back up to the top of the steps and forced into the jet plane position.
What's that?
Well, it's a position rather like a diver, a racing diver assumes in that moment before he flings himself out into the water. It's with knees bent and head down, and with the arms stuck up behind him, rather in the position of a jet plane with swept back wings. Very uncomfortable. Your head is a foot or so from the ground, and you're bent double, and you're held in this position by somebody, by a Red Guard or two.
So you can't see what's going on around you?
All you can see is the ground beneath your nose. There was a sort of lull in the shouting and screaming and a burst of applause. And then I think I was struck in the back and ordered to straighten up. And it was then that I saw the body of my cat hanging a few inches in front of my eyes. That hanged the cat with a washing line from the roof or the balcony above, I'm not sure which. And there was the body of my cat hanging a few inches in front of my face. And the crowd then took up the chant, "Hang Gray."
Did you think that they were going to hang Gray?
I can't remember thinking anything at the time. I can't honestly remember what my thoughts were. I think just being doubled up with a pain in one's back and people holding you in this position and being struck in the stomach every time you try to straighten up to ease the pain is more or less empties one's mind, I think. I don't remember what I thought at that time.
How did you organize yourself in this small room, 8 by 8?
Well, I had very little to do. I had only 3 books in this room. On the night the Red Guards came and did me over, I was allowed to take what they described as the daily necessities for my life from my bedroom. It just happened that I had 3 books in my bedroom. All the rest were in the office and the lounge of my house, and these were sealed off, so I was unable to get them. I had 3 books. One was a book on chess. The other was, one of the others was a book on yoga, and the third was the theory and practice of communism. I tried to keep my reading just for when I was eating. I don't know why, I've always liked to be doing something else other than just eating, and I used to read as I sat on the edge of this little bunk, eating from the seat of the only chair. I was not allowed a table even to eat off, and I used to read then. I'd read all these books before, so it was simply a matter of reading something which I'd read before, but it was something to do, something to concentrate my mind on.
Did you ration yourself? Did you say, I shall read only 10 pages today?
Yes, I used to ration myself to, I can't remember what it was now, but it'd be 10 or 20 pages each meal, and then I would have a break of a few days before I would start reading it again. The chess book wasn't really readable at all. It was diagrams and test games and so on, and famous games, which really weren't much use to me without a board and a set of chessmen. The yoga book was the most useful. This very sort of Asian attitude of life came through to me very strongly from this book. Although it was only a very simplified version of yoga, there was no deep philosophical explanation. But this helped me immensely in just adjusting myself to this awful little. So it was almost a providential thing, this book, I felt.
After 3 months, Gray was moved into a room 12 feet square. Now, for the first time, he had a mattress on which to sleep, a desk at which to write. But he had neither pencil nor paper, nor did he get them for another 7 months. I
tried to develop and show to them a complete indifference. I tried to show that they could do nothing to me that would affect me in any way. This was very difficult, since the things they did, like holding back my mail, I knew my mail was being held in the dining room on the table for day after day after day, for no reason at all, just so that they could exert a little bit of authority and control over me. This affected me very deeply, but I never showed it. I always tried not to show any of my feelings to them. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing that they were hurting me, if you like. I went through varying periods of mental unease, I suppose, and sometime early in 1968 I began to sleep very badly indeed, and I began to lose my appetite.
Did you dream?
I had one or two recurring dreams, I suppose, but they weren't really nightmare-type dreams. I would often dream I was home, and but the thing was that during the time I was dreaming, I would realize that I was dreaming, and I would continue to dream and continue to walk along the street in London, thinking I was home, and the realization would dawn on me that I was still a prisoner and that I was dreaming. And then the next night, or perhaps a few nights later, I would dream again, and I would dream that before I dreamed I was home, but I wasn't. Now I am. And then the realization would come again that this time also I am not home. In May 1968, I was allowed to write letters for the first time. I'd been allowed to send the odd cable from Christmas 1967 onwards. I was allowed to write one letter per month, either to my mother or to my wife, as they put it to me. They knew I wasn't married. So I wrote one letter per month, and I alternated between sending a letter to my mother and another letter the following month to my girlfriend. I thought about escape, but it's quite impossible in China. The Chinese have a built-in security system in their very existence. Foreigners, Westerners, white-skinned people stand out like a sore thumb anywhere in China. But I often thought that I might be able to get out of this room, out of the window. I loosened a nail which was holding the screens across the window, and I think I could have got it open. I perhaps could have got out of the window into the courtyard. I think I could have got round to the back, across the rooftops, possibly down by the moat of the Forbidden City, stolen a bicycle, and pedalled to the British mission. I couldn't have got any further than that, I don't think. In most countries, foreign missions are regarded as foreign territory. But I reasoned this way: if I got to the British mission, what might they do? Come and burn it down. I thought perhaps I could go to the station and sit on the buffers of the train and go to Canton, but it's 1,000 miles. It's a long way to go. I thought these things, but I never very seriously considered it. I did at one time think that perhaps if the confinement went on in this early 9-month period, that perhaps I might risk trying to get out, getting to the British mission, seeing somebody, talking to them, and then coming back again before it was light and returning to my cell.
You were that desperate for conversation?
I was desperate for human contact, some kind of friendship or some kind of friendly contact.
What are you going to do now?
I find that I'm unable to make any plans more than a few days ahead. I still want to just be quiet and readjust in whichever way it sort of occurs to me each day to do. I had no experience to draw on to endure my 2 years. I've had no experience to draw on to come home and readjust, and I'm just playing it by ear each day.